to achieve raising the debt ceiling, which must happen. America must not ever default, and doing it with Democrats only. During the previous reconciliation, they got a ruling from the parliamentarian that it's possible to amend the budget resolution. It's called a 304 process. They've had plenty of time to execute the debt ceiling increase and have chosen not to do it. Now they have plenty more time because clearly the pause button has been pushed on the larger reckless tax and spending bill. I implore them one more time not to play Russian roulette with the American economy. We've been down this path before when you did not have divided government and the party and the majority got the job done. They need to do this. They have the time to do it. And the sooner they get about it, the better, to make sure the markets and the American people know that, as usual, the American government will never, ever default.
And just a couple of quick points. One is the Democrats, as we all know, have unified control of the government here in Washington. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House. They have a procedure to do this at 51 votes. We know it, they know it, the parliamentarian has confirmed it. And they have been told repeatedly, going back to July, as the leader pointed out, there was a letter signed by 46 Republicans saying that they need to use reconciliation. Republicans are not going to be a part of their massive spending and tax spree. So it's been very clearly articulated. There is plenty of time in which to do this, and it's important that the Democrats get started doing it. Their argument or their excuse for not wanting to do it, very simply, is that it's complicated, it takes a while, it's hard. Well, when you're spending $3.5 trillion, the biggest expansion of government in history of this country, and you're raising taxes, the biggest tax increase in the history of this country, and you're doing that in a partisan way through a partisan procedure with 51 votes, it ought to be hard to do that. It ought to be hard to have to borrow all the money that they're going to have to borrow to finance their big tax and spending spree. It shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be convenient. They should deliver the votes to do it. And we will insist on that, and there will be another vote tomorrow, which will be very clear that that's the path that they need to take. Shifting gears for just a moment, we had in a period where there aren't a lot of bipartisan issues. One of the bipartisan issues, I think, that we have in front of us is what to do about big tech's influence on our country, our economy, on our world. And there was a hearing this morning, Senate subcommittee hearing, in which I participated, and where the Facebook whistleblower testified, and I thought provided very compelling testimony about why it's important that Congress take action to ensure that big tech is held accountable and that there is transparency about their practices. They use opaque algorithms, they use artificial intelligence to moderate the content that people in this country see. I think that's got to be addressed. We've got a couple of bills. I'm involved with a couple of pieces of legislation, one which modifies and amends and reforms Section 230, and one which we call the Filter Bubble Transparency Act, which ensures that people in this country have a choice, have an option to, if they want to look at algorithmic manipulated content, fine, but they also ought to have an option to just look at straight content and give the choice to the American people, make it their choice, their option, and it'd be one way of making big tech more transparent and more accountable to the American people. And I do believe, and I hope there's bipartisan support for this, that it's time for Congress to take action.
The Republican Party is not going to allow the IRS to spy on your banking accounts. On this single topic alone, I've gotten more emails and calls in the last 3 weeks than I have on any other item over the times I've been in the United States Senate. So here's what's going on. As a part of what the President is proposing with his reckless tax and spending bill, he wants to give $80 billion of additional money to the Internal Revenue Service. Janet Yellen wants to use that money, the Secretary of Treasury, to hire a whole new army of IRS agents. She has said she wants those agents to have access to your personal bank accounts, your checking accounts, to the point where she said that any check that you would write or any deposit you would make for anything above $600 would have to be reported to the IRS. Their goal, of course, is to squeeze more money out of hardworking taxpayers, and they want to use that money that they squeeze out of hardworking taxpayers to pay for their big government socialist agenda. Now, number one, this is an invasion of privacy of American citizens. And number two, it turns bankers and credit unions into de facto IRS agents, and they don't want any part of it either. This is the topic that came up repeatedly when I was at grocery stores in Wyoming this past weekend. The IRS is the most powerful and truly unresponsive or unaccountable agency of government. And they have proven they're unable to keep tax records secure. Proven it. We are not going to allow Joe Biden to give the IRS more power. We want to stop this in its tracks. I want to be able to tell cowboys in Wyoming that if they make a payment on their pickup truck or buy a saddle for their horse, they're not going to have an IRS agent along for the ride.
Well, people at the White House in the last few days have been repeatedly saying that raising the debt limit is not about the money they're spending now, it's about the money that's been spent in the past. And I'll just say for the last 20 years, that has never been the case. Every time we had a debt limit debate, it was about what was going to happen next. In 2019, when Speaker Pelosi said, "I'm not going to help raising the debt limit unless we spend more money than the current caps let us spend," that was about the future. In the early 2000s, when Senator Biden and Senator Schumer and Senator Durham all voted against raising the debt limit, it was about future spending. This is the reason, if there's a reason to have the debt limit, it's to talk about future spending. But how do you talk about future spending when for 9 months now, Republicans have been told we don't need you for spending? And in the one thing we were allowed to be part of, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, we're now told, and by the way, that can't happen unless we spend all the money we want to spend on another bill that you won't be involved in. When it comes time to do something nobody ever really wants to do, raise the debt limit, that's an odd time to say, now let's share our responsibility, even though up until now it's all been one side of the Senate doing whatever they wanted to do without a single person from the other side of the Senate.
Folks, my head has been spinning, and I'm sure many of yours have as well, with crises after crises after crises hitting Washington, D.C. And it's of the Democrats' own making. You can look at the failed Afghanistan withdrawal, which left our allies, American citizens, and Afghan SIV recipients in the lurch. You can look at this unbelievable crisis at our southern border, which is a humanitarian disaster, not only for Americans, but for all of those migrants that are coming up to our porous southern border. You can look at the outrageous spending now, which is pushing our nation to its debt limit. You can look at the tax increases that are being proposed by Democrats in the House and the Senate. Again, it is crisis after crisis. And let me tell you, the folks in Iowa are extremely frustrated at what they see going on here in Washington, D.C. At the end of this last fiscal year, Iowa ended up with a $1.2 billion surplus under our Republican governor and our Republican House and Senate. Our second quarter GDP exceeded the national average. This is what true fiscal responsibility does for a state and could do for a nation if you're not operating under crises. So I would encourage the Democrats and President Joe Biden to get their house in order, work with us. Iowans are frustrated, so are we.
Across the state of Florida, people are frustrated with inflation. They're frustrated that they're having to make a choice between being able to fill up their car and put food on the table. They're concerned that used car prices are up, new car prices are up, home prices have just skyrocketed. Inflation is caused by reckless government spending. Now, I had COVID. I got both the vaccines. We got both my shots. What I'm hearing from businesses now is they're scared to death that there's going to be a lot of employees that will not come back to work because of Biden's vaccine mandate. And we already have a supply chain problem that's causing prices to go up. So what happens if 10% of our workers decide not to show up because they don't want to get the vaccine that Biden's mandating them get? What's that going to do to our supply chain, which is already fragile? And what's that going to do to prices where we already are seeing shortages? So all of these things that the Biden administration is doing has unintended consequences. But right now, the biggest consequence is we're seeing constant inflation.
Senator McConnell.
Yeah.
As you talk about the debt ceiling, are we to believe that your telephone is not rung from investors in New York, Wall Street, people concerned about your position on this, that is not happening as we get closer to this 18th deadline?
Well, we're all hearing about the need to do this. The only issue is who does it. It's not in dispute that the debt ceiling needs to be addressed. The only issue is who does it. And I've been over this repeatedly with you all and others since July.
So they've called you but have they called you to implore the banking industry, Wall Street investors?
I'm sure we've heard from everybody, and I'm sure the Democrats have as well.
Have you heard from President Biden? He said
I've not heard from the president. We had an exchange of pleasantries yesterday.
Senator McConnell, Democrats, you agree with Democrats, they agree with you, that the debt ceiling needs to be raised, and they're now saying they're willing to do it with Democratic votes alone. What possible difference does it make which mechanism they use to do it, whether it be by reconciliation or by Republicans just not filibustering them, doing it with their 50 votes?
Look, they said they're perfectly prepared to do the job themselves. The easiest way to do that is through the reconciliation process, as I've pointed out for 2 months.
How is that easier than Republicans just not filibustering and then passing it with 50 votes?
That would require getting consent from every single Republican to lower the threshold to 51.
Do you not have the power to do that?
I can't imagine that would happen.
Do you not have the power to do that?
And the reason that wouldn't happen is we've been pointing out for 2 months how they ought to do it. And that's the way to get the job done.
Aren't there 10 Republicans?
Yeah.
Given the concerns in your conference over inflation, do you support Joe Manchin's call for the Federal Reserve to end quantitative easing right now?
I haven't given any thought to that.
Do you have any concern that your position on the debt ceiling could provide fuel to Democrats to change the filibuster? They are apparently discussing possibly using the changing the filibuster.
The debt ceiling needs to be addressed. The only question is who should address it. We've laid out a path for 2 months here. It's easily done. There's plenty of time additionally this month to do the job. And I hope our friends on the other side will step up and take care of it.